Guys, and welcome back to the Shivering Mouse. I'm so excited to have you here with me today. Today we're going to discuss Disney's 49th animated feature, The Princess and the Frog. Now here in the West we are pretty familiar with the original fairy tale of The Princess and the Frog, where a spoiled princess is playing with her favorite ball, which happens to be made of gold because of course it is, right? And she knocks it down a well, and she sends a little frog down to retrieve it for her. In exchange, he asks for a kiss. In some versions, he asks to live with her for 3 days prior to the kiss, but at any rate, it ends the same. The kiss results in the frog turning into a prince. Well, Disney's Tiana kind of immediately flips the script on this original fairy tale because she's actually incredibly hardworking, often working double or triple shifts, saving money to become an entrepreneur and start her own business. Very independent, very strong-willed, does not believe in fairy tales, which is really a twist for a Disney movie, but it makes her a hilarious contrast to her best friend Lottie. In this version, it's actually the prince himself who is a spoiled, rotten brat to such an extent that his parents have cut him off from the family fortune, which is not something any parent wants to do, I imagine. I'm not a parent, but I'm pretty sure they don't want to have to cut off their child. They want to provide for their child, but at some point, the man baby has to be just a man and cut off the baby part, right? Well, Naveen is not headed that way. He's not interested in that. He'd rather just go to another country, find some rich Southern belle, marry her, and inherit her fortune, rather than learn the lesson that his parents are trying to teach him in the first place. So, I kind of feel bad for Naveen's parents here. Gotta be honest. So, yeah, Tiana kind of upends the whole basic narrative of The Princess and the Frog. Basically, her story is that she grew up with a very hardworking parents. Her mother, Eudora, has probably one of the most beautiful names ever. I believe in Greek it means gift, which is absolutely beautiful. I love kind of old-fashioned names like that. So the name Eudora, I think, is just very elegant, very beautiful name, voiced by Oprah Winfrey. And then her father is a fantastic cook. He's working 2 or 3 jobs at the same time to provide for this family, and I believe she loses him in World War I. The main part of the story takes place in 1926, so this is just post-ish World War I, but prior to World War II, and we do see a photo of her father in uniform. It doesn't state specifically that that's how he's passed away. I mean, it could be health-related issues based on the amount of hours he's pulling, too, but it doesn't specifically say what killed him, and because it does take the time to point out the photo of him in uniform, and he's very young and handsome still at that time, so we can only presume that he was taken at an early age because of the Great War. At least that's kind of the conclusion I came to, and I think that's where we're kind of led at that point. But again, looking at what his working hours, it could easily be a stress-related illness as well, because that man was a hard-working guy, right? Anyway, that serves as an inspiration for Tiana, too, to work super, super hard to accomplish her dream that she and her father were never able to realize together, and that dream was to open their own restaurant. She saved almost enough money to make the down payment on the restaurant, and so she's really excited. She's really working double time now because she's, as she says, almost there. And we all know what it's like to be so close to a goal you can almost taste it, but you're not quite there yet. It's this weird combination of excitement and terrible frustration all at the same time, and she starts the movie right out on that note. After the whole beginning sequence where she's a little girl and she never ever ever gonna ever kiss a frog, ever. So of course she does just that, right? So anyway, it's an interesting contrast you see between Tiana, who's almost too grown up for her age, and Naveen, who is not grown up at all. Tiana takes everything so seriously that her friends and family members are kind of worried that she's pushing herself too hard. And Naveen, let's just say nobody has those concerns with Naveen. Nobody thinks this guy's pushing himself too hard. Honestly, he's kind of a brat, and at the beginning of the movie I don't really like him, but that's what makes his growth so much more wonderful, right? So, in the end, a super, super envious voodoo king named Dr. Facilier, driven by greed, puts in place a plan to kill Tiana's best friend Lottie's father, Mr. LaBeouf, because he is super, super wealthy, and in order to kill him and gain his wealth, he of course plans to marry the prince off to Charlotte LaBeouf and gain access to the fortune in that way, because the prince will effectively owe him. Why will he owe him? Because it's not really the prince, it's a stand-in. He turns the actual prince into a frog. Why a frog? I don't know, but I love that in the song prior with the friends on the other side, Dr. Facilier refers to Naveen needing the green. It's the green, it's the green, it's the green you need. Well, he sounds like and insinuates that he's referring to green as in money, but of course he's referring to the fact that he's going to turn him into a frog because he's a jerk. Anyway, so Naveen, of course, then runs into Tiana, because we knew these two were going to bump into each other eventually. That's kind of the premise of the story. So he bumps into Tiana and decides that because she's in a princess outfit for the costume party, she's a princess, so if she kisses him, he'll turn back into a man. She's not actually a princess, so the kiss results in them both turning into frogs. They run away and escape into the bayou, where they befriend Louis, a very musically talented alligator, because, of course he is, right? And then they meet the lovely and adorable Ray, who is a firefly who is in love with a star that he's named Evangeline. And there's a lot of fan theories about Evangeline, too. Some people think that Evangeline was Ray's wife and was an actual firefly, and he's still completely in love with and devoted to her and just waiting to kind of rejoin her, as you see him do at the end of the movie. Some state that Evangeline is probably the second star to the right, connecting her to Peter Pan, and others still say that she is the wishing star from Pinocchio. And if you look at the animation from Pinocchio and the animation of Evangeline, the two stars do look incredibly similar, which would mean Evangeline is also the name of the blue fairy. So a lot of fun theories there where Evangeline is concerned, and Evangeline is another absolutely beautiful old-fashioned name, so I'm pretty excited to have her in there. And then, of course, the last friend they make as they battle their way through the bayou is Mama Odie. Mama Odie is the voodoo queen of the bayou. Now, each different district or area around New Orleans was originally broke up with different voodoo queens, and the bayou is Mama Odie's territory. She's the one in charge of the magic in that region. And so, because of her experience with voodoo magic, she's able to tell Naveen and Tiana how to break the spell. Now, Naveen was right. He does need to kiss a princess to break the spell, thus releasing himself and Tiana from their froggy curse. However, since Lottie is the princess of the Mardi Gras festival, until midnight when Mardi Gras is over, they have to get to Lottie so she can kiss Naveen so that he and Tiana are no longer frogs. So that's already not complicated enough, right? So they head to New Orleans to meet up with Lottie. Yeah, it's already getting a little dizzying, right? So they finally get to New Orleans. They have a big showdown with Dr. Facilier. Ray fights him personally to give Tiana time to get away. He does buy her time and is killed in the process. However, Facilier does catch up with Tiana and in the end tempts her to also kind of give up Naveen, because he is determined to capture Naveen and take out LaBeouf in order to get his fortune. Tiana is the only character in the entire movie that we see resist the temptation of Dr. Facilier. Despite his ability to look into her past and see everything that drives her, she still refuses. And it's really, in the end, her love for her father and her refusal to see him as a victim, even though that's how Dr. Facilier portrays him. She refuses to see him as weak, refuses to see him as a victim, and understands that he didn't have everything he wanted, but he had what he needed, and thus she understands what she needs instead of what she wants in her own life as well. And so I love that growth kind of comes from her father. In the end, he's still helping her. I'm not gonna cry, so you stop it. You're crying. I'm not crying. You're crying. I might be getting ready to cry. I do cry every single time Ray dies in this movie. Every freaking time. And every single time I see his funeral, too. I cry. It's terrible. My husband made fun of me last time. He says, "You watched this 3 days ago. How is this still affecting you?" I'm like, "'Cause he's so sweet." And he is. He's adorable. I love Ray. And so, yeah, in the end, though, they then make it to Lottie. However, it is past midnight by the time they've explained to her everything that's going on. And she agrees. She's Naveen says he will marry her because she's always wanted to marry a prince and be a princess in exchange for the money to help Tiana open her restaurant and for her breaking the curse. She, however, loves her friend Tiana and tells him, no marriage necessary, I'll help you pay for the restaurant and I'll break the curse for you. But it's after midnight. Lottie no longer has the power to break the curse for her friends, and so Tiana and Naveen move back to the swamp and agree to be frogs for good. They have a little froggy wedding ceremony, and of course by him, the prince, marrying Tiana, she becomes a princess, so when they kiss, he has kissed a princess. And by this point, we've been so wrapped up in that midnight deadline that we forgot that the deadline was midnight for Lottie, not for them. Anytime he kisses a princess, the spell is broken. Therefore, they go ahead and have a regular human wedding again, too, so that all of their friends can attend. They use some gangster tactics, using Lewis to intimidate the owners of her restaurant so that she can actually open it up. And I kind of love that, even though it's just a tiny little blip clip. It's hilarious, and I kind of love it. And then she opens her restaurant. Happily ever after, dreams do come true in New Orleans, right? I love that. I give this movie overall an 8.5. I have been to New Orleans and they depict it so beautifully. It has that old swampy feel and it's just gorgeous. The music, each song is a different style of music from the New Orleans area and it's absolutely gorgeous. You'll be humming it for hours. The only thing that I would mark down when it comes to showing this movie to perhaps littler kids is there are some, because of all the voodoo in it, some pretty scary moments that are pretty intense. And so, your littles may be a little intimidated by that. Maybe distract them for the scene where Dr. Facilier gets dragged down to hell. It's a little intense. But other than that, there's great funny moments, and it's absolutely beautiful to look at. The music is phenomenal. I highly recommend this movie. So if you want to go ahead and help me out, you can subscribe to my Patreon at patreon.com/shiveringmouse. Every Friday I have a free episode of my podcast there where we are touring Walt Disney World. This week we're going to go to the United Kingdom Pavilion in Epcot. Super exciting. And Wednesday we have a kind of a book club meeting where I read to you out of various stories that inspired works that eventually became Disney movies, and so that's super fun too. However, that is behind a paywall, so you do have to donate at least $1 to get the storybook sessions. If you want to help me immediately on YouTube, you can hit like and subscribe in order to help more people find this podcast. And until I talk to you on Friday with my special villain episodes on Dr. Facilier, where we'll dive deeper into his character. Until then, I love you, warts and all.